Hi everyone, Mary Mitchell here. I'm so excited about this piece, I can't tell you. So I'm taking you, starting to learn to start with the end and the beginning, and then hopefully if you're interested in seeing how I did this, you'll be intrigued enough to watch. This is how it ended up, and I just love it. I really, really do. So I found a piece of styrofoam, and it just happened to fit so nicely into it. I did have to trim it down very, very carefully with an X-Acto knife because styrofoam, when you start breaking it and cutting it, it is a mess to try to clean up. But I was very, very careful, and it worked out really well. This piece didn't, it was fairly easy. It wasn't sagging a lot. It was pretty strong because of all the acrylic clippings anyway, but I just did this as a safety measure, and then I taped in the styrofoam as another safety measure. And then of course here I am measuring just to make sure, because I have it propped up on C-hooks. And then I take my tape, and I'm not thrilled with this tape. I don't recommend starting it with blue. It's very difficult it doesn't stick very well, and then it's hard to get off. Once it's on there, I can't, it's not my favorite. I will go use frog tape from now on with this. But I wanted to try this because it was thick, and I wanted reinforcements. I wasn't sure how many coats of resin I would have to put on this because it's pretty thick with all the acrylic clippings. So I went up a little bit high, and I went around it, the whole canvas, and then I reinforced it even further with some smaller pieces. And I still wasn't 100% happy. I was afraid that the resin was going to drip through that blue tape, and I didn't want that to happen. So what you will see is I'm going to take my frog tape, and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to, as you can see, I'm going to overlap it so that part of the tape is at the bottom of the canvas and part of the tape is covering the blue tape, thereby drastically decreasing any chance of the resin slipping through the tape. I wanted this resin to remain only on the top for several reasons. Number one, I'm going to frame this, so there's no reason to have the resin falling over the sides. It's easier to frame, it fits better, it's easier, it's less sanding, it's just a cleaner process. Because I will have to sand the sides very carefully now that this is done. So here it is, a little reminder, don't forget your respirator, because resin is, it's very hard on many people, and I'm lucky that I can use it. So this particular 11 by 14 needed 6 ounces of total resin, so it would be 3 ounces of the resin and then 3 ounces of the hardener. I'm using art resin. I'm not getting paid for this, but I stick with art resin because the results are always consistent, and I haven't seen any yellowing so far, as opposed to a couple of others I have tried. So here I am putting the resin onto the piece, and I'm going to spread it around with my hands because I find that's easier to do than trying to get in those corners with a piece of wood or a stick, or I just find that this is easier. I have 2 pairs of gloves on so that when I'm done spreading this around, and I take off one pair of gloves, the other pair underneath is clean, so that when I torch it, the torch doesn't get, messy, you can imagine. So I also tilt it to make sure that it has full coverage. And lighting is very important as well, because you're going to hold it up to the light. That's why the respirator is so important, because for me, I get pretty close to the piece, and I'm looking for dust. I'm looking to make sure that it's spread. It is self-leveling, but you still don't want, big gaps that you might have missed, because it's self-leveling, but only so much. So if you leave a big corner without any resin in it, it's not, it's likely you're going to have uneven resin coating there. So, okay, so here's the next day. I wake up in the morning and I know it needs another coat, right off the bat, but that's okay. I was prepared for that. So I removed the tape, all the tape. I was a little on the fence. I thought maybe I would just leave it on and sand it and then do another coat, but I didn't like how this blue tape went on anyway, so this was my chance to get the frog tape on the whole piece entirely and have nothing to do with that blue tape. It really, I don't like it for this anyway. Frog tape is really the best in my book. So I'm sanding it down, and the reason you have to do this is because I let it dry to the point where it got pretty hard. Well, it got hard. So I know some people say they have no trouble with this, but they recommend sanding it down before you put another layer on it, unless you put another layer while it's still a little bit tacky, soft. So I prefer this method, and because I let it dry overnight. So I begin with sanding it with a higher grit. The lower the number, say 120 or 150, it's a very gritty sandpaper, and then I go up from there to about 400. The reason I do that is because, and I make sure I wipe in between, I water down, I wipe it in between each, the higher I go. And the reason I'm really focused on the edge of the painting of the piece, I'm not focused so much in the middle of it. That's usually pretty even. It's the sides that I want to get. The reason I go higher, like a lower grit, is to get those, the sides level, to get any pieces that, any resin that may be a little higher on some of the sides than other sides. I only use water when I do wipe it off between each sanding. I don't use alcohol. And I don't know if my logic makes any sense, but the reason I don't use alcohol is because I use alcohol you can use alcohol and even acetone or nail polish remover to dissolve the alcohol, to clean up with it. I've used it to clean out, the inside of a cup, a silicone cup, or even a plastic cup. I've used it to wipe resin off, a piece of plastic if I'm going to use it again, like this one. I use to wipe down a heat gun or my torch. Once it has completely cooled off and is turned off, please don't don't do it. Alcohol is very flammable, and you don't take any chances if you're going to use it to clean up even nail polish remover. Make sure that whatever you're cleaning up is completely cooled off. So my logic is, what I'm trying to say is that since I use alcohol and alcohol dissolves, alcohol dissolves the resin, cleans it up. In my mind, I'm worried that if I use alcohol to wipe off my piece, it won't adhere consistently, and I might end up with like dimples or grooves or just inconsistent adhesion is what I'm trying to say. Pockets where it's softer than others. You sand it to give it a better chance so that it adheres better. Unless you get the piece before the resin is completely dry, then you can pour over it when it's still kind of wet and tacky. But I like for it to be completely dry because I want to make sure that there's no big dust particles or anything on there. So that's why I do it that way. But if you look at the Art Resin website, they have really good tips on there. And like I said, guys, I'm not getting paid for this. I just really, every time, the other brands, like Art Resin has never failed me. It really hasn't. I follow the rules. And I've always been happy. I don't have pockets where it's soft, softer on some parts of it. It's always comes out the same because I just keep my process consistent. So I'm giving it one last wipe here and measuring out my resin, hardener versus, hardener and then the resin, 3 ounces each, same thing. And remember again, this particular resin is by weight. I'm sorry, by volume, not by weight. Yes, so it's by volume, not by weight. So that cup that you see me holding, I wanted to show you. I was holding it up so you could see how it looks. It's cloudy when before, and there, there I am just showing you that this is the respirator that I have to do this with, and it works great. So anyway, and then once it's fully stirred, after 3 minutes at least, it turns clear. You'll know. So you'll know when it's done. Give it at least 3 minutes, 4 minutes, even 5 minutes isn't going to hurt if you're not sure. Really scrape the sides of the cup. Keep scraping your stick, both sides. When you put it back into, to stir it again, just make sure you keep really getting those sides really well. Don't stir it like you're whipping an egg, Take your time. This has a pretty good open time, so I think it's about 45 minutes. And for this, that's perfect. Scrape the bottom. Just really, really scrape your cup well. And then once you pour it over there, don't scrape the sides and scrape the bottom to try to get every little drop out. Just put it to the side, because then you will run a chance of getting uneven coverage. It's just not worth the little bit of extra that you're trying to squeeze out. There was plenty of resin for this piece. I always mix about an ounce more than what I really need for that purpose alone. So I get up really close to this piece and I pick out any lint or hairs or anything that I might have seen, might have fallen in, that I get close up. I have a pair of glasses on and I'm really looking at it really well. I'm happy. So now I'm going to cover it with a piece of poster board, and I leave it like that. So here I am. It's the next day. Today, I know right away when I look at it that I am psyched. It came out really, really good, guys. It came out really good. There's no lint on it. There's no hairs in it. There's barely any dust in it. I got so lucky, I feel, because that lint in the dust the struggle is real, as they say. So here it is. I've taken all the tape off. I'm going to let it get super hard first, probably this afternoon, and then I'll sand those, the little bit of rough edges that you see there on the side. But the middle part of it, the piece itself is just perfect. It's perfect. I got so lucky. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day, everybody. I hope you got something out of this. Take care. Bye-bye.